All right, so this is going to be another movie review. This one's called Santa Fe Trail, 1940. This is a U.S. Western film directed by Michael Kurtz and starring Errol Flynn as J.E.B. Jeb Stewart, Olivia de Havilland, Raymond Massey as John Brown, Ronald Reagan as George Armand Custer, and Alan Hale Sr. I'm giving it 1 out of 5 stars. I hated this play. Oh, this is a movie poster say they created a path through the wilderness, then paved it with bullets and lives. Written by Robert Buckner, the film is critical of abolitionist John Brown and his controversial campaign against slavery before the U.S. Civil War. In the subplot, Jeb Stewart and George Armstrong Custer, who are depicted as friends from the same West Point graduating class, compete for the hand of Kit Carson Holiday. The film ranked among the higher grossing films of the year in the 7th Flynn de Havilland collaboration. Its content has little relevance to the actual Santa Fe Trail. At West Point Academy in 1854, Cadet Carl Ryder Van Heflin, an agent of John Brown, is dishonorably discharged for instigating a brawl among the cadets after distributing anti-slavery pamphlets with his classmates, which his classmates disapprove of. Due to the controversial nature of the pamphlets, some believe the issue of slavery to be one that would inevitably resolve itself. And the U.S. Army's position against the pursuit of ideological causes while serving. Following the brawl, Raiders classmates Jeb Stewart, Errol Flynn, and George Custer, Ronald Reagan become second lieutenants and are posted to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas territory, the most dangerous duty in the Army, an assignment they relish. On the way to Kansas, Custer and Stewart meet Cyrus K. Holiday, in charge of building the railroad to Santa Fe, New Mexico, and his daughter Kit, Olivia de Havilland, with whom both officers fall in love. So Ronald Reagan and Errol Flynn are competing for Olivia de Havilland. The Kansas City territory is blood-stained and war-torn, a victim of John Brown, Raymond Massey's relentless crusade against slavery. Meanwhile, Raider has enlisted him as a mercenary in Brown's army, which has been terrorizing the countryside and freeing slaves. During Brown's attack on a freight wagon under the protection of the U.S. Army, Stewart and Custer capture Brown's injured son, Jason Gene Reynolds. And before he dies, the trouble boy informs them about his father's hideout at Shubal Morgan's ranch in Palmyra. In disguise, Stewart rides into Palmyra, the center of the Underground Railroad, but Brown's men spot his horse's army brand. He is captured and he's taken to Brown at gunpoint, attempting to escape. Stewart is trapped in a burning barn, but he's saved by Custer, who leads the cavalry to the rescue, driving Brown into seclusion. 3 years later, in 1859, believing that Brown's force has been broken, Stewart and Custer are sent back to Washington, D.C., where Stewart proposes to Kit. However, Brown is planning to reignite war by raiding the arsenal at Harper's Ferry, Virginia. When Brown refuses to pay Raider for his services, Raider rides to Washington to alert Stewart of Brown's plans, and the troops arrive just in time to crush the rebellion. Brown is then tried for treason by the state of Virginia, and he's hanged. The film was based on a script by Robert Buckner. At one stage, Randolph Scott was mentioned for the lead. However, by April 1940, it had become a vehicle for Errol Flynn and Olivia de Havilland. Raymond Massey signed to play John Brown in June. John Wayne was mentioned as a possibility for Flynn's co-star. Dennis Morgan was announced for the role of George Custer. Morgan was borrowed to appear in Kitty Foyle, and he was replaced by Ronald Reagan before filming began. Van Heflin was signed to play the villain following his success Broadway in the Philadelphia story. It was his first movie since 1937. In June 1940, Warner Brothers announced the film as part of its slate. It was one of 5 films the studio announced for Flynn, the others being The Constant Nymph, Captain Horatio Hornblow, Shanghai, and Juniper Laughs, all of which I have not seen. Filming started in July 1940, delayed by a recurrence of Flynn's malaria. Outdoor scenes were filmed at the Lasky Movie Ranch in the Lasky Mesa area of the Simi Hills in the western San Fernando Valley, California. The railroad scenes were filmed on the Sierra Railroad in Tuolumne, California. Tuolumne County, California, excuse me. The film was premiered in Santa Fe after a 3-day festival featuring a large number of celebrities, including Flynn de Havilland, Rudy Valley, and Wayne Morris. Rita Hayworth performed a welcome dance. There were 250 guests and 2 special trains, one from Hollywood and one for the East, for a total cost of $50,000 shared between Warner's and Santa Fe Railroad. De Havilland was stricken with appendicitis during the trip and had to be flown home. In its initial release, Warner Brothers premiered this film in large cities with an experimental sound system named Vita Sound, not stereophonic, but aiming to create a greater dynamic sound range for battlefield action and dramatic music. According to Warner Brothers Records, the film made a profit of $1.48 million. It made $1.748 million domestically and $785,000 foreign. The film was released in France in 1947 and recorded 2.147 million admissions. There are several major inaccuracies with many of the characters and timelines depicted in the film. If I go through that, I'm going to go over 30 minutes. Santa Fe Trail entered the public domain in 1968 with United Artists Television. Then the owners of the pre-1950 Warner Brothers library, inherited from Associated Artists Productions, did not renew the copyright. As a result, the film later became widely available on VHS, Laserdisc, and DVD, as well as freely available for internet downloading, which is what I saw on YouTube. All right. So I'm going to go down my list. I couldn't sleep today. Too much energy drink from the past 2 days. I think I drank, what was it? I think I drank about 1.25 bottles since yesterday, and my body wasn't used to it, so naturally I can't sleep today. I was planning to, I thought I was going to be dead tired today, but actually I can't sleep. All right. Let's go through this massive list. Let's see what we got here. Shock, 1946. This by Night. Train to Tombstone, 1950. Deputy Marshal, 1949. Broadway Limited, 1941. Black Dragons, 1942. The Strange Woman, 1946. The Fighter, 1952. Bamboo Gods and Iron Men, 1974. Zero Tolerance. Ulterior Motives, 1992. The Big Chance, 1933. I'll See You in Hell, 1960. Three Desperate Men, 1951. The Star Packer, 1934. The Devil's Hand, 1961. My Outlaw Brother, 1951. Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, Talons of the Eagle. Riders of the Whistling Pines, 1949. Portraits of Terror, The Final Curtain. Safe and Effective, A Second Opinion, 2022. Malibu Crush, 2022. Dead Tides, 1996. Easy Money, 1936. Swing High, Swing Low, 1937. An Eye for an Eye. Return to the Real Anthony Fauci, 2022. Return to the Batcave, The Misadventures of Adam and Bert. The Giant Gila Monster, 1949. Shadows on the Stairs, 1941, The Bigamist. 1953, The Unholy Four. 1954, Triple Cross. 1966, Hold Me While I'm Naked. 1966, Head. 1968, 1990, The Bronx Warriors. 1982, Exterminators of the Year 3000. 1983, Platoon Leader. Penny Serenade. 1941, Creature from the Haunted Sea. 1961, War of the Satellites. 1958, The Black Raven. 1943, He Walked by Night. 1948, They Were So Young. 1954, Whatever It Takes. 1998, One Dark Night. 1982, Cypher Bureau. 1938, Sinners in Paradise. 1938, What Price Crime. 1935, Maytime in Mayfair. 1949, He Walked by Night. 1948, The Strange Love of Martha Ivers. 1946, The Wrong Road. Oh, never mind The Wrong Road. I've already seen a review of that. Tarzan the Fearless, 1933. Monstrosity, 1963. Diamond Trail, 1933. Sinful Cargo, 1936. Youth on Parole, 1937. I'll Name the Murderer, 1936. The Chase, 1946. Impact, 1949. A Stranger in Town, 1943. Half a Sinner, 1940. Captured in Chinatown, 1935. Rimfire, 1941. 9. Rimfires, 1949. Tales of Robin Hood, 1951. The Magic Sword, 1962. Bandit Queen, 1950. Crooked River, 1950. Marshal of Hell Dorado, 1950. Colorado Ranger, 1950. Wild Weed, 1949. Strangers of the Evening, 1932. Renegade, Devil's Partner, 1961. Fist of Glory, 1991. Night of Horror, 1981. Jungle Ground, 1995. Scanners 2, The New Order, 1991. Scanners 3, The Takeover, 1992. Scanner Cop 2, 1995. Great Guns, 1941. Saps at Sea, Charlie Chan, Murder Over New York. Best of the Best 4, Without Warning. Excessive Force, 1993. Don't Look in the Basement 2. The Mad Monster, 1942. King Kong Lives. Drum, 1976. Extreme Justice, 1993. Hillbillies in a Haunted House, 1967. Twin Dragons. Scream 2. Jimmy Trainor's Alien Parasite film. Forbidden World, an Alan Holtzman film. The Shooter, 1997. The Shooter, 1997. This is That Cold Dead Look in Your Eyes, 2021. Undersea Kingdom, 1936. Rage of Honor, 1987. Bloodsuckers, The Royal Bed, 1931. Judge Priest, 1934. Regular Fellers, 1941. The Package, The Great Gabbo, 1929. Blind Husbands, 1919. Turkey Shoot, The Snow Creature, 1954. Love Laughs at Andy Hardy, 1946. A Farewell to Arms, 1932. Balance of Power, Overkill, 1996. Prehistoric Women, 1950. Silent Night, Bloody Night, 1972. Fog Island, 1945. Emergency Squad, 1974. The Vampire Bat, 1933. Radioactive Dreams, 1985. Black Sheep, 2006. Spontaneous Combustion, 1990. The Dick Tracy Show, 1961. Midnight Phantom, 1935. The Gorilla, 1939. Exiled to Shanghai, 1937. Mystery Plane, 1939. Remedy for Riches, 1940. Soul Man, 1986. Big Town After Dark, 1947. One Body Too Many, 1944. Woman on the Run, 1950. Not Wanted, 1949. Port of New York, 1949. Make-A-Wish, 1937. Jungle Bride, 1933. I Bury the Living, 1958. In the Army Now, 1936. Vengeance Valley, 1951. Captain Kidd, 1945. Hell's House, 1932. The Fatal Hour, 1940. $2 Better, 1951. Fear in the Night, 1946. The Trail Beyond, 1934. Savat, 1995. Martial Law 2, Undercover. Haunts, 1976. Mercenary 2, Thick and Thin, 1998. Little Lord Fauntleroy, 1936. Jacob, the Man Who Fought with God, 1963. And Ursus in the Valley of the Lions, 1961. That's the end of my list. Since I'm only at 16 minutes, I'm going to go through all the discrepancies. Okay. There are several major inaccuracies with many of the characters and timeline depicted in the film. First, J.E.B. Stewart, George Custer, and Philip Sheridan, as well as George Pickett, James Longstreet, and John Bell Hood, are all depicted as classmates in the same graduating class as West Point, and all stationed in the Kansas territory at the same time. In reality, they graduated at different times. Stewart in 1854, Custer in 1861, Sheridan and Hood in 1853, Pickett in 1846, and Longstreet in 1842. This depiction of these future Union and Confederates officers adds an element of foreshadowing, predicting the coming Civil War conflict in which former U.S. officers would be forced to choose sides following Southern secession. Second, future Confederate President Jefferson Davis, who was Secretary of War under Franklin Pierce in 1854, the time set at the beginning of the film, was not in this cabinet position by the time of John Brown's raid of Harper's Ferry in 1959. By then, the position was being held by John B. Floyd, member of the Buchanan administration. This film takes substantial liberties with other historical facts. Yeah, you can say that again. Stewart and Custer, while they did attend West Point, albeit at different times, and fought against one another at the Battle of Gettysburg, were never personally acquainted. Jason Brown did not betray his father to the U.S. Army. He was briefly a prisoner of war, but after John Brown sought his son's rescue, he arranged for Jason to be exchanged as a POW. Jason Brown was not killed in Kansas. One of Brown's two other sons, Frederick, was shot by Reverend White. Stewart served in the 1st Cavalry Regiment, and Custer served in the 2nd and 5th Cavalry Regiments. Custer was never in Kansas territory. He was stationed there after the Civil War, when Kansas had already become a state. The character of Call Raider, expelled from West Point and assisting later betraying John Brown, did not exist. It was just a figment of somebody's imagination. The U.S. Cavalry did not assault the Harper's Ferry engine house that was occupied by John Brown. It was taken by U.S. Marines, who incurred 2 casualties, 1 dead, 1 wounded. The railroad into New Mexico was not begun until 1879, 20 years after the fictional events in this film. The characters in the film carry Colt Model 1873 single-action Army revolvers, which did not exist in 1859. Jefferson Davis did not have a daughter named Charlotte, who was introduced to George Custer in 1859 in the movie. His daughters were Margaret Howell Davis, who was born in 1855 and thus would have been 4 years old in 1859, and Verena Ann Davis, who was born in 1872. Cyrus K. Holliday did not have a son named Bob or a daughter named Kit Carson. His children were actually named Charles King and Lily Holliday, respectively, and the maiden name of the real Mrs. Jeb Stewart was Flora Cook. To this day, some Historians describe the figure of John Brown as a monomaniacal zealot, others as a hero for his violent tactics in the name of emancipation. The film depicts the character of John Brown generally as an antagonist, showing the valor of the principles of abolition, but criticizing the methods by which Brown pursued his crusade. In the film, Brown eagerly endorses breaking apart the Union of the United States and further bloodshed as a means of bringing an end to slavery, ultimately seeing his own demise as a sacrifice made to further the cause of abolition. The movie was made on the eve of the United States entry into World War II, and its tone and political subtext expresses the desire to reconcile the nation's dispute over slavery, which brought about the U.S. Civil War. And it was trying to appeal to moviegoers in both the southern and northern United States. The U.S. Civil War and the abolition of slavery are presented as an oncoming tragedy triggered by the actions of an anarchic madman. I think it was triggered by the actions of Abraham Lincoln, because all the other countries besides the U.S. had been able to abolish slavery without any bloodshed. But Abraham Lincoln was a bloodthirsty guy. He wanted to punch the South. So there you have it. I could go on, but I could go on about the Civil War, but then not only would the movie be inaccurate, but also the Wikipedia page would be inaccurate, because it talks about the causes of the Civil War being the Compromise of 1850, the Fugitive Slave Act, the publication of Uncle Tom's Cabin, the Kansas-Nebraska Act, the Dred Scott decision, none of which are addressed in the film. Yeah, they didn't address the fact that Lincoln wanted to use war as a means to not to end slavery initially, because he hated slaves, but sort of became a tag-along theme, abolition, when he knew he was going to win. He wanted to punish the South as much as possible, including the abolition of slavery in the South, which was not his original idea in the beginning. He wasn't in favor of abolition in the beginning. He was not an abolitionist, despite what people say. So, anyways, I used to think that the Civil War was caused by tariffs on the South. That's what my college history professor told me, but I'm starting to get away from that. I'm putting the blame squarely on Abraham Lincoln on this one, not John Brown or any of those other things that Wikipedia mentioned. So, anyways, almost impossible to sleep at this point. I did take a shower, so hopefully I can rest a little bit. I only got 2 hours of sleep today. Not good. And I've got to work 10 p.m. to 6:30 a.m. tonight. My last overnight shift. And I'm going to be pounding that energy drink. Holy cow. I'm doomed, man. My son has a drinking problem with fruit punch. He's distracted by his iPad, and he's not watching where he's grabbing his drinks, so he spills it all over the Daily Catholic Missal 1962 edition, my DVD player, and the table here, and the carpet. It was a disaster. He didn't say anything. I was giving him a hard time. I said, now you got fruit punch pages on your $50 book, but I can always buy a new one. The way my finances are going right now, I'm down to about $1,800 on my checking account. And I've got to pay my phone bill. I got car insurance looming and rent looming. And my, what else? I've got my, my Sonic wireless bill, the fiber internet hooked up to AT&T's equipment. I got that looming. And God knows what else. But hopefully they won't take out as much child support on my next paycheck. I got to bug payroll, find out what the heck they're doing to my paycheck. Taking out $109 and not reporting it under the deduction. Where is that money going? I guess it's going into a black hole. I don't know. It's bizarre. This whole payroll system with my new company is super funky, man. Anyways, guess what I had for lunch, Adrian? Pork chops. I still got all these pork chops that are on sale at Safeway. I'm trying to stock up my freezer. I've got hamburger patties, pork chops, taco meat, you name it. It's all on sale at Safeway. I'm trying to buy the stuff that's on sale so I won't have such a huge food bill next month when I go grocery shopping. I just wish I could pay off my my car, the IRS, and my Robinhood margin account. And if I can get a second job back at Luma Hotel, working 4 days a week, that'll be decent. I won't be in as bad a shape financially as I am right now, working 40 hours a week for one employer that's messing up my paycheck. Oh, brother. Well, got a bizarre text from my boss telling me to go to some Italian, take my loved one to some Italian restaurant in San Mateo. I wonder if he has a financial interest in it. This guy's kind of a little bit off his rocker sometimes. I don't know. He's a nice guy, and he's trying to help me out, but sometimes I worry about him. All right. Well, anyways, I'm up over 29 minutes now. I'll let you go. Nobody's in the chat room. Karate Man's still sleeping, I guess. Laters.